Alrighty, here we go. Ball up top, episode 2. Hopefully, we will keep this one shorter for our viewers. An eventful first, week and a half of college basketball, but let's just get started with a little deep dive into our teams. Josh, you want to get us going on Indiana so far this year?
Yeah, kind of been a dream start for the Hoosiers under first year head coach. Beat Alabama A&M pretty set handedly in game one. So you can't really take too much from a home game bye game but as I'm sure we'll talk about with you guys coming up here in a second, you can never take those for granted. And Indiana fans actually know that too. In Mike Woodson's first year, his first game that he coached, I think we won by like three against Marshall or something like that. And then in Archie's first game that he coached, he actually lost at home to Indiana State. So those two coaches got off to great starts. But yeah, no, in terms of this year's team, they looked awesome then, moving the ball well. One thing that really stood out to me in both games, and we can talk more about the Marquette game as that was a more competitive game, was the amount of ball movement that we had and the amount of cutting that we had outside of the ball. A lot of our prior offenses were a lot of standing around, a lot of throwing in the post, dribbling around the post, kicking out, throwing back in the post. And we're look like we're going to be playing a modern offense, which is what we expected. It's kind of what DeVries did at his past couple stops, but it's good to see it in the Cream and Crimson for the first time. And then obviously in the Marquette game, the first half was the Tucker DeVries show. I think he had 24 in the first half, 5 or 7 from three, I think, to start. He was playing with tons of confidence, shooting it from couple feet behind the 3-point line and really showing that he is a true seasoned college basketball veteran. He's going to be the go-to guy on our team, which was really great to see. Then the second half, he kind of got into some foul trouble, and Lamar Wilkinson really kind of stood up, and it's great to have that second guy that's right there and ready to go. We didn't skip a beat when Tucker got in foul trouble, and Marquette really started guarding him close up beyond the 3-point line. So that was good to see Lamar in a big time matchup, not just, he's coming from mid-major, so there was a little bit of, not concern, but a little bit of question marks about how he would adjust to a big time matchup. Neutral court, he really stepped up and played kind of how he expected to. He also has no fear in taking the deep three. Some of them might have not been the best shots, but I love it. I say shoot as many as you can, get them all up, and especially when you have this confidence in his shooting stroke, it was great to see. A couple other, I guess, key takeaways from the Marquette game. I do think that depth could be an issue going forward. We got into foul trouble pretty quickly. I mean, the first half was just a disgustingly refereed game on both sides. I don't think in the Big Ten they'll be calling as tightly as they will in that game. But, in the NCAA tournament, they do kind of call it tight sometimes. So it's good to get that experience. And we got into some foul trouble. Reed Bailey kind of struggled to get going in the first half, but Sam Alexis really stepped up and he was very efficient. He's been a great transfer piece coming in from Florida as a role player and having a pretty big role this year. And then also Trent Sisley was huge in the Marquette game as a freshman, his first big time college matchup. He looked all the bit ready to go and ready to contribute. So that was great to see. I don't know if either of you were able to watch the game. If you guys had any thoughts.
Yeah, I watched the a little bit of the Marquette game. Big takeaway for me, just general overview was, I mean, I've watched because of you and Justin. I've watched a good bit of Indiana basketball games over the year. Outside of Trace Jackson Davis, offensively, it's a tougher brand of basketball to watch, and this was very exciting. You guys remind me a lot. I mean, the Crimson helps with it, but you remind me a lot of how you run your offense is similar to how Nate Oates sets up his offense at Bama. But I mean, you guys look great. DeVries is averaging 23 points on 58% from three. I know it's only 2 games. And Wilkerson, we talked about him earlier last episode, 21 points on 50% from threes. And again, you already talked about it, but these guys can score. You also soared up to 21 in Ken Palm. You made a huge jump. And I saw a stat. You're the your offense is the sixth shortest average offensive possession time. You're getting shots up really early in the shot clock, which I
Love
mean,
that.
yeah, that's great. And again, a complete brand slash culture change from the Indiana basketball old. I will say the Marquette game, it showed me a little more than I thought it would. 100 points against a Shaka Smart coach team is impressive, no matter how good or bad that team is. And also Marquette in the second half, they came out of the gates kind of firing. They cut it to like 6 points, kind of made it a ball game. And I mean, you guys just kept playing your basketball and pulled back away, which I thought was, telling of a well coached basketball team.
Yeah, I mean, on that 100 points against Marquette, I think I saw that it was Shaka's first time allowing 100 points in a game he's coached, a D1 game he's coached in regulation, which
Wow.
sounds like kind of shocking, but then you watch the games and you watch him play, and he's a six man on defense. It's
Oh my gosh,
ridiculous how
on the
far the quarter
court.
goes.
Yeah.
So I get how he's had such good defensive teams, but yeah, no, it was great to see. Defense played better than I thought too. Do still think that defensive rebounding and having a paint presence could come back to bite us, but the shot making was so fun to see. I don't really care.
He and Shotgun Buzz Williams always run a tight race for Defensive Coach of the Year.
Yeah, they sure do. I was looking upcoming games. Josh, I mean, you probably know better than I do, but nothing real big or needle moving until Louisville on December 6th. Are there any other games that you're kind of looking at?
We have Kansas State at home in Assembly Hall, so that's a Power Five matchup, but I think they're like in the 70s this year on Ken Palm, somewhere not too high, so should be close to double digit favorite, I would think, against them, but still a high major test, so gotta come prepared for that one. But yeah, besides that, it's a couple of bye games, Kansas State, and then we have Louisville and Kentucky coming up towards the end of the out of conference schedule. So both those games will tell us a lot because those are two top 50 teams, and I think as we were told, we talked about Kentucky a bit too much on last episode, so. It'll be fun to play them and get a good two more tests before we start the Big Ten schedule.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but we got two teams that we were, I think, pretty collectively high on going at it tomorrow in Louisville. That one's gonna be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, that's an early season great game. Um, well, I guess Hunter, that kind of transitions us into Auburn. You want to get us going there?
Sure, yeah. Little bit of a rocky start to the Stephen Pearl era. Had a 95-90
Right.
overtime scare against Bethune-Cookman on Monday. Um, and credit to them. I don't want to sell them short. They played an incredible game. They hit some crazy shots. They were super efficient from the field. I want to say they ended like, well, yeah, I mean, 50% from the field, 52% from three. So, we did not play what I think we deem our brand of defense, and especially Steven kind of having been the defensive guy under Bruce all these years. That was pretty disappointing, especially inside. I mean, it felt like they scored at will at the rim. They really were felt like the bigger, more physical team down low on both ends of the floor. I want to say they blocked like 9 or 10 shots. Um, and really kind of dominated down low. That said, you find a way to win a game against a team that's probably a little more talented than people realize. I mean, um, Arterio Morris is a guy that's playing for them now, and has had some questionable off the court character issues that we won't really go into, but former borderline 5 star, started his career at Texas, transferred over to Kansas, and is now at Bethune-Cookman. So, um, I think they're a pretty heavy favorite to win the SWAC and make the tournament this year. But again, you were, a heavy, heavy favorite on your home floor, and let these guys kind of push you around a little bit. So, we came back on Thursday and rolled over Merrimack, and felt like the defensive effort was a lot better. I think with defense, a lot of it is, in my opinion, just the effort and the attitude that you have about it. Even you're going to be outmatched in some games, size wise, length wise, but it's really about just kind of having that attitude on that end of the floor to dig your heels in and get on the ball and get hands in passing lanes and things like that. And thought that looked a lot better in the second game. A couple of bright spots just to call out. Keyshawn Hall is every bit the scorer that I think we expect him to be.
SEC
28 in
Player
that
of the
first
Year.
game.
Yeah.
Gets to the line a ton. He's super physical when he gets the ball down low, especially for a guy that's playing a little bit undersized at that 4 spot. and Sebastian Williams Adams has been awesome.
Yeah.
He was fairly high ranked. I think he was somewhere in the high 40s, low 50s in the country as a recruit. But man, on both ends of the floor, he's been arguably our most complete two-way player to this point, and definitely does not look like a freshman thus far. He's been, pretty efficient scorer, really active on the defensive end. So that's been a bright spot, especially with a team that I think Peyton, we agree, even before the season that front court depth is going to be a little bit of a challenge for this team. So seeing him able to step up and give some really strong minutes in both of those games was a bright spot for me. Keyshawn Murphy was really efficient in that first game. They sat him against Merrimack. I know he's still dealing with some an ankle injury that's been bothering him. So I think they said in the game against Wofford tomorrow night he's available, but probably not going to see a ton of minutes. Knowing that we got Houston coming up on Sunday, that's gonna be a tough game. There's no way around it. Houston is a really good team. I think several of us, if not all of us, had them as our national champion pick.
Yeah.
And we know what Kelvin brings, especially from a defensive standpoint. They're super physical. Have to imagine JoJo Tugler is going to be glued to Keyshawn Hall when he's on the floor. So that's going to be a big test at Legacy Arena in Birmingham on Sunday. Honestly, I think, and I kind of felt this way about Bama St. John's, which I know we'll talk about here in a minute, but I think we want to get this game into sort of a track meet if we can. I don't know that we want to get into a rock fight with Houston. And that's kind of what Bama was able to do with St. John's, get them to play their type of game, and we're able to outrun them and outscore them. So it's going to be a lot of that with this team this year. We're a little bit undersized, lacking in the front court depth wise, like I mentioned. So we're going to have to get into some shootouts. Todd Pettiford's been okay. I think he's still kind of adjusting to being, in kind of that leader role and being one of the primary guys on the scouting report. But I don't worry a ton about him. He's going to get it going. So those were just some of my takeaways from the first game. P, I don't know if you have anything to add from those first two last week, but
I
definitely got
mean,
our work cut out for us with the rest of our out of conference schedule coming up here.
without a doubt, I think you hit the nail on the head with most everything. I'll keep it short. I agreed. Sebastian Williams Adams is a lot better than advertised, or at least how I thought he was going to be. I mean, he's averaging 15, 6, and 5 as like a 6'9" power forward, a stat line that kind of resembles like he plays like Draymond Green outside of the, you know, other stuff that Draymond brings to basketball. Uh, Pod, yeah, 12 points per game on 18% from three. That's probably going to be your surface level fan takeaway from Auburn basketball. He's a big game player. You look at a box score, it's never going to look super pretty. He's not the most efficient. But when you're playing a tough team or you're playing a road game, he's going to be the guy who's going to hit the big shot. I'm not worried about him at all. Like you said, Keyshawn Hall averaging 27 points. I think it's going to be easy. He gets to the foul line so easily. Even if he doesn't have an efficient game, he's going to score.
He shoots free throws well, really
Yeah, he
well.
does, which is rare for an Auburn basketball player. I will one call out that I'm a little bit nervous about, but I'm excited to see because I got frustrated at times with Bruce. Bruce ran like full hockey line rotations. He's subbing out 5 for 5. Bashir and Magwood, to talk on the lack of guard depth, they have not played a lot, and we've played two bad teams. So I mean, I think that Steven, I mean, it's early, but I think Steven might be just rotating, our 7, 8 guys in there. I don't think you're going to see 10 plus players seeing double digit minutes in a game. And then again, Bethune Cookman, that's it wasn't a great game, honestly. Out of all ranked teams, Auburn was probably one of the bigger losers in the first
Yeah.
two games. But like you said, Arterio Morris, 5-star from Texas. They had a guy, Dr. Bradley, awesome first name, 4-star, and then Zion Harmon, a 4-star from Seton Hall. Like that's no SWAC team. Our good friend Ryan Hammer had described him as last chance you, and that's kind of how they're playing, and their schedule lines up. I mean, I don't know if you guys have looked at their schedule. They play Indiana, actually. They
Yep.
play Auburn. They've already played Auburn and Miami. I mean, those are 3 big games for a SWAC team. They know the talent they got on their roster. They're trying to get national attention. So yes, disappointing game. I think they're better than advertised, though. My biggest takeaway from that game that pissed me off so much, we're up 3 ending the game. I've never seen this in my life. We foul a shot from beyond half court. And give Arterio Morris the credit. He went to the line and hit all three. As Auburn fans, we've been there before too with Kyle Guy. But I mean, just ridiculous. You can't do that. Situational awareness. I think that's something that will improve. But we have a young team. And then just looking ahead at the upcoming games. I mean, Auburn's a, kind of the opposite of Indiana not seeing Louisville until December 6th. They do have Big Ten play, obviously, but we've got Houston on November 16th, ranked number 1 in the country. We've got Oregon November 24th, Michigan number 6, November 25th. NC State's not ranked, but they're pretty good, December 3rd. And number 5, Arizona, December 6th. I mean, that's 5 games, 3 against top 6 teams in the next 4 weeks. You're going to know a lot about Auburn after them. It's tough to be super optimistic with the results in a lot of those games, and I am pretty nervous about Houston, but I think that game will show how we handle that game and how we play after it will show a lot about this Auburn team.
Yeah. Yeah, not to mention, that whatever your third game is in that players tournament, I mean, you could run into Gonzaga, St. John's, Bama. So, very well could be another very quality opponent, with a team that's learning a lot about each other, learning how to gel, 10 new scholarship players. They're going to have to do some growing up quick. So we'll see how things go. But yeah, right now I don't want to say it's looking like tough sledding, but it's going to be a rough few weeks if these guys can't start to gel and get some more production beyond what's been primarily Keyshawn Hall and Sebastian Williams Adams at this point.
Yeah, agree.
So I'll ask y'all, have your expectations for the season changed at all, given what you've seen in the first 2 games, or do you just kind of chalk that up to new team coming together, knocking off that offseason rust, and you'll kind of learn more with the big stretch you guys mentioned you have coming up?
Not really. I think I gave a moderate low I guess Sweet 16 isn't low expectation. I still think that's probably more on like the peak ceiling of this team. And I still think, the floor. I If you can find a way to maybe lose to Bethune Cookman, you can find a way to maybe lose a lot of games. So yeah, I would keep my floor also at this team. I could see a scenario where we're not playing in March.
Yeah. I don't know that I think it would be a little over the top to like completely alter expectations based on that one game. I think where I had us before the season started last week was somewhere in the range of like a 6 to 7 seed. Maybe now, you could be potentially looking at playing one of those 8, 9 games. That said, you could still win one of those and have be in an upset spot in the round of 32. I don't think that's crazy to say. I think one good thing is the schedule bodes well if this team does end up somewhere in the range of like 20-12 or 21-11 or something like that. I think we'll have the quality opponents and the strength of schedule that will help us if we do end up more in kind of that bubble conversation. But I think there's reasons to be concerned for sure. I think just again, give Bethune-Cookman their credit, but especially from a depth standpoint, and I know, Peyton, to your point, like sometimes the 10, 11, 12 man platoon rotations get a little annoying, but we're going to need Magwood to step up as a backup point guard. We're going to need Oporum to step up in the front court as a rim protector and a shot blocker, getting some rebounds. So I still have optimism that those guys will continue to get better and figure it out, but it's sort of cautious optimism at this point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, agree. Not to backtrack, Josh, but what about you?
Um, I would definitely say my expectations rose a bit. I still think that this team won't really. We're not obviously not a championship contender yet, or I don't think we will be at any point in the season. But I do think that we're going to be better than I thought. Maybe I would say our ceiling's probably around the same, but I think that our floor could be making the tournament now at this point. Again, just 2 games, but just the style of play we played. the shooting ability that we had and how connected they already seemed to be together after being a brand new roster was encouraging to see. So try not to overreact after 2 games, but after watching 8 years of terrible basketball, it's hard not to.
Yeah, I hear
Yeah,
you.
man. I mean, the shooting alone has to make you feel like there's, the ceiling's raised a little bit. I mean, Wilkerson and DeVries both had what, six threes against Marquette? Like
Yeah,
that's crazy. And I don't think it's crazy to say that they can do that, again. Like I think
fairly
those are
consistently.
guys that
Yeah.
can shoot the basketball, and um, that is what wins you games in March. So I think that's definitely a reason to be excited and have a little bit more optimism, even though, Marquette's maybe not what they've been in previous years under Shaka, but again, to put up the amount of points that you did and shoot so efficiently against a Shaka Smart team is not something to look over. So I think, having those pieces that can come in and shoot the basketball, and it's not just one guy, right? Like it's not like, oh, if DeVries has an off night, who do we go to, or where do we look next? Between him and Wilkerson, especially, you've got some guys that can really put the ball in the bucket from deep. So I think that's valid for sure.
Yeah, I forgot to mention we haven't even seen Nick Dorn yet, who's another transfer that is out due to injury, but he's supposed to be a pretty solid shooter. Might be a little bit more streaky than the other two guys, but he could be a solid third option from beyond the arc when they're trying to take away DeVries and Lamar. So yeah, exciting times for sure. Anything else to touch on with Auburn, or do we want to go ahead and dive into some of the games that we saw outside of our two teams this past week?
Let's dive into the slate from last week. Um, I guess first Arizona versus Florida, kind of our kickoff game. Arizona winning 93-87. Um, I mean, my big takeaway, Koa Pete and Jaden Bradley. I mean,
Yep.
good Lord. I don't even think we talked about Jaden Bradley, but I mean, Koa Pete, the stat line, he was dominant. Jaden Bradley controlled that whole game from start to finish. I thought he looked great. Um, Again, Koa scoring 30 points. It's tough to beat. Florida, to me, my concerns that I spoke about last week are the same. They lost a lot of players who, were shot creators and shot makers. Boogie Fland and Lee are two talented transfers that they brought in, but they didn't create their own shot well unless they were in transition. They shot 3 for 13 from three. That's not going to cut it when you're, the number one team at the time in the country. I agreeing with you, Hunter. I think Thomas Howe is Florida's best player. I mean, he looked every bit as good as advertised. He went on a little run at the end of last year around March, and he picked back up right where he left off. And like Alex Condon being first team All American is kind of a joke. I think he's the third best player on that team, let alone the fifth best player in the country by preseason votes.
Do you have one of the guards ahead of him?
I mean, I think you got to put Haug ahead of him, and I would take on paper now maybe even Boogie Fland. Like he hasn't shown his full upside yet, battling injuries last year and only seeing 2 games so far. But I mean, I think he's better than Condon. Oh, and the other guy, Robert Chinyelu, that center. I don't know if you guys saw, he had his jersey ripped off his back
Yeah,
in the game.
yeah, that was pretty crazy.
But he's got no offensive game either. I mean, he could his offensive game reminds me of a brick mason. I mean, he can't shoot at all. He's got no touch around the rim. He's a physical defender, but I mean, a physical defender who allowed 93 points and 30 to a freshman who's playing in the same position as you. Like, I was surprised by Arizona, but this showed me more about Florida.
Yeah, I think one of the craziest things about what Kopi did is the front court that he did it against. I mean, I know that we had questions in the preseason about Florida's guards and some of the backcourt production is going to come from, but this is the best front court in the country between Condon, how Big Micah's looking like himself again, which I love to see. That was a really devastating injury that he had against Auburn 2 years ago in the SEC tournament. And so he started getting back into his groove a little bit last year, but he's played pretty well through their first two games, and and then Chinulu too is a solid defensive piece. I think that was my biggest takeaway was not just what Koa Pete did, but who he did it against. And I think we, like everybody else in the country, are sitting here after 1 week going, man, we're talking about the wrong freshmen, and Devanza, Peterson, Boozer, those guys have been great, but man, what a week for both Koa Pete and Caleb Wilson.
Yeah.
And I think they've got to be seeing all the noise that all the talk is around those three guys, and they're like, hey, we're here to play too. We're every bit as good, and so I think that was super impressive to me. As far as Florida goes, and I was kind of jumping back and forth because I had to sweat the Bethune Cookman game a little bit more than I thought I would. I thought maybe I could get back to Florida, Arizona a little bit earlier than I did, but there were times where I thought Xavier Lee, and I didn't watch him a ton at Princeton, but he's quick. I mean, he's got a quick first step off the dribble. But P, to your point, the shooting just wasn't really there from either him or Boogie Fland. And Boogie Fland's a talented player, and I think he'll get it going as the season goes on. But um, I'm kind of the opposite. I think I was more impressed with what I saw from Arizona more so. I think Florida's going to be okay. Now, come March, if they don't have, and they don't need a Walter Clayton type performance to make a run in March, but because that was one of the best we've ever seen. But I think what they returned is going to keep their floor pretty high throughout the season. But they are going to need one of those two guys or both of them come postseason to step up and hit some shots for them. Tommy Houck is I stand by what I said before the season started. He, in my opinion, is their best player right now. He's only getting better, it looks like. But I think they'll be okay. I think they're going to, have every bit of a chance to win the SEC regular season, and be a top 2 to 3 seed. But I think for me, the stock rose on Arizona, and I know we were kind of joking, texting after that game because we went into last week's episode not really knowing a ton about Arizona. I think Josh mentioned Koa Pete, I mentioned Jaden Bradley, but I'm looking at them as a team now that is every bit of a Final Four and national championship contender. And they've got some tough non-con games as well. I think they got to go to Cameron, right?
Yep.
Auburn goes in there a little bit later into the non-con schedule. So we're gonna learn more about them for sure. They got UCLA. Is that it's either Saturday or Sunday? I don't remember quite off the top of my head, but that should be a fun one and kind of an old Pac-12 rivalry game. But I stock up on Arizona for sure for me.
Yeah, I don't really disagree with anything that either of you said. To me, the big takeaway from the game was the two-man game between Bradley and Pete. And like Hunter mentioned, Pete did that against a very experienced front court. And something that really stood out to me from that is he went to the foul line, I guess 6 times. He took 12 free throws, maybe some of those red ones, maybe a little less than that, or a little more than that. But he only had one foul himself. And to do that in his first college game against the defending national champs with the experience that they have in their front court, that's was really impressive to me. So definitely someone to watch going forward is can he keep that same foul productivity? I doubt he'll go every game playing 35 minutes and only having one foul, but that was really impressive to me. So nothing really more to add on that besides that really stood out to me.
All righty. Well, that would take us to Kansas UNC. Kansas losing in uh, Chapel Hill 74-87. I mean, this was a great game, at least for one half. It was back and forth first half, and then in the second half, I mean, whatever Hubert said at halftime got the boys going. They shot 71% in the second half, which is absolutely insane. They outscored Kansas 58-37 and won the game by 13 points. We talked about him earlier. Caleb Wilson is very good. He's every bit as good as advertised. He's more of a gamer than I thought he was. He was able to create his own shots. He got in transition. He played great defense. He wanted to win that game very bad. And I've seen clips of him after the game saying that he's got he's got like an Amon-Ra St. Brown list on his phone of like players who are ranked higher
I
than him.
saw
And
that.
he's trying to take them off one by one, and I kind of like that.
Yeah,
Um,
what he there was something about from was it the McDonald's All America game where he
oh
played
yeah,
with Darren Peterson and
and
Darren
he didn't
Peterson wouldn't
play.
wouldn't get him the ball or wouldn't pass him the
Yeah,
ball. So he was like, I remembered that. I love that, man. I loved him calling that out after the game because yeah, what a hell of a game from him. 75% from the field, only took 1 3 and missed it, but was efficient at the line and extremely efficient from the field. Grabbed 12 boards as well, or seven. Sorry, excuse me. I was looking at that wrong. He had 7 boards, but
and and for people who aren't familiar with UNC and are just looking at the big brand name players at that program, Vasir, they've got this white center. He, to
He was
me,
awesome.
was their X factor in the second half. He took 3 shots in the first half, and 2 of them were threes. And no offense, as like everyone's got that tall white friend who's just camping out behind the 3 point arc. It felt like Hubert told him, let's start getting like taking the shots inside. Yeah, so after only 3 shots in the first half, they started playing the pick and pop a little bit more. He went 8 for 12 with 20 points, a lot of alley oops, a lot of rolling to the rim. He really dictated the game, and Flory Badunga had nothing to say. Like, he couldn't do anything. And Kansas, to me, is that they have 2 guys on their team, too. One of them is Darren Peterson, who is as good, if not better, than advertised. He is a very talented player. But Flory to me, I'm kind of over him with Condon. This might be an overreaction, 2 weeks into the season, but he stinks, I think. As a Kansas team too, you cannot. They're so athletic and so quick. How you are that quick, that athletic, you suck at shooting. Given that takeaway, usually that's how that works. But you're also bad defensively. You can't have all of that going wrong for you. I Again, this might be an overreaction. I might have been too high on Kansas. That second half was one of the tougher halves of basketball that I've watched this year. And I don't know. I don't know where they're going to get points from outside of Peterson.
Yeah, and I think that's a good takeaway. But another takeaway that I also had was that maybe we were too low on UNC because as the three of us as a podcast, we
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
talked them down last episode, which clearly was a mistake on our part. I did see that Seth Trimble broke his arm in practice on, I think on
yeah,
Sunday after the second game. So I don't know if there's a timetable yet for his return, but you got to imagine it'll probably be till at least January.
6 to 8 weeks is what I saw.
good
Okay.
lord. And that's a team
So
that
So
struggled with guard production. Like we just talked about, like they had a dominant game, but the guys that we talked about were Vasir and Caleb Wilson. That's your forward and center.
yeah, but as far as Kansas goes, I mean, it was impressive to watch Peterson really have a big of an impact as they did. I mean, they were running the offense through him as a freshman in his first game, kind of like we talked about with Arizona. It was a big time performance against a very good team in your first game on the national stage. So that was good to see. Payne, I think you texted about it. Bryson Tiller had a good performance.
Yeah, oh yeah, he did.
But besides that, got to get Trey White going, and he wasn't awful, I don't think, but definitely you'd like to see them. Their first half was maybe not offensively, but defensively, I thought they looked a lot better. Um, but couldn't couldn't sustain the second half, and I think to me the bigger takeaway from that game is on the North Carolina side than the Kansas side. I'm sure I don't know Kansas is non-con off the top of my head, but I'm sure they have or it's loaded, so they'll have more opportunity to make up for that. But pretty impressive showing from North Carolina.
yeah, Kansas has got not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow, they got Duke in the Champions Classic.
Loss.
Um, they play UConn. Where is that game against
Loss.
UConn?
Agreed.
It's in Allen. So,
Oh, win. It's a win.
that's
After
Fuck.
but
having been there one time, it's a pretty special place. So
yeah, it's I
I'll
mean
never root against or not root. I'll
it's
never doubt them in fog.
it's gonna be up for that game, you know it. They play Notre Dame, they play Syracuse, they play Missouri, NC State. So they've got some Power Five opponents on the schedule. I think Missouri could be tricky. I don't know where that game is. It's actually in Kansas City, so it's a neutral site for
It's a
that
rivalry game
game.
too for them. Those schools hate each
Yeah.
other.
Oh yeah.
So
Absolutely. So, we'll see going forward. And then Carolina, I was actually looking at theirs. Their non-con's actually not too crazy because I was thinking about with Seth Trimble and that injury, um, in a timetable of and basically just call it 2 months. They they play at Kentucky on December 2nd. They play Michigan State down in Fort Myers on Thanksgiving, but Navy, St. Bonaventure, Georgetown, they play Ohio State on December 20th. I think that's that like CBS Sports event that they do with like it's like UCLA, Carolina. Um,
Atlanta,
I can't
right?
remember who
At State
else.
Farm.
Yes, it is. St. John's, Kentucky, and then Ohio State, Carolina. So not too crazy, but that's absolutely noteworthy. That's the guy that you were kind of leaning on as your leader in the backcourt, and where does some of that production pick up from? But again, Caleb Wilson is an absolute stud. And if Visar can be a reliable scoring option going forward, then maybe it's not as big of a concern as UNC fans maybe thought it was like a week ago. But definitely something worth noting. Yeah, that they play Kentucky and Lexington on December 2nd. That one will be interesting. Battle of Blue Bloods there. Um, but overall, yeah, not, I could see them getting out of the non-con even without Seth Trimble with 2 or 3 losses. And I think they would take that all day going into ACC play. And man, I mean, once their ACC schedule starts, Florida State, SMU, Wake, Stanford, Cal, like
Yeah.
they should win all those games. And maybe that's more of an indictment on the ACC than anything else. They don't play Duke until February 7th. Trimble could very well be back by then. They play Louisville late in February, and then second game at Duke is last game of the year. So very, very favorable schedule for North Carolina going forward. And this was obviously a huge win. Um, to get that one under their belt and get some confidence. And again, Caleb Wilson is a star of the making. I think he and Koa Pete kind of flew under everybody's radar. And again, that's no knock on the other three. But got to be excited if you're a Tar Heel fan about what Caleb Wilson's bringing to the table.
For sure. For sure. I mean, that kind of takes us into our next game, St. John's, Bama. St. John's playing in the Garden, losing 96 to 103 to Alabama. This game was very fun to watch, and it was going on right during a relatively full college football slate. And I found myself flipping back and forth and watching more of this game. Bama, I hate to say this, they looked very good. And my big reason for like saying that this looks better than like maybe a Bama team of past is Bama teams are always free throw merchants. They're going playing a very physical team in St. John's. They got outshot by 18 free throw attempts and won this game pretty handily. They made defensive minded St. John's play their game in the Garden, which
Yep.
was really impressive. Again, hate to say this, Aiden Holloway looked very good, and Phylon is we all said it,
He's a stud.
Hunter. He's maybe your SEC pick of the year, player of the year.
Mm-hmm.
He looked the part. As far as St. John's goes, Zuby Ejiofor, 27 points, 8 rebounds. I mean, he looked good. Ian Jackson, he can shoot. I talked bad about him again, about his performance at UNC last year. He looked well. I will say I was kind of St. John's going to figure out the defensive end. It's a Patino coach team, so them being down by 9 in the first half with only 38 points and then or 40 points or something, and coming out in the second half and scoring 53 points because they knew they had to do that. That kind of showed me a little bit about them too. If they need to score, this St. John's team has some offense in their back pocket as well. But yeah, that being said, Bama, pretty dominant performance. They actually fell in Ken Palm, which was surprising to me, but they moved up in the rankings to number 8.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's too tough to tell because I feel like every year with Bama, like they're loaded with talent. Don't get me wrong, and I think the style that Nate Oates wants his teams to play kind of just leads to a little bit of volatility where they can go, score over 100 points against an elite defensively coached team with Rick Pitino's St. John's team. Um, and then sometimes with them, the shots aren't falling. And you're like, this just doesn't even look like the same team. Um, so that'll be something to monitor going forward. But yeah, that said, LeBaron Philon is an absolute bucket getter. Aiden had a nice performance as well, 50% from the field. He didn't actually shoot the three that well. He was 2 for 9 from three, but 9 for 18 from the field. And maybe that's even more encouraging if you're an Alabama fan. I didn't get to watch much of this game, if you can believe it. I was up in Nashville for the Auburn football game, and the bars we were tailgating at did not have college football on at noon or college basketball on at noon on a Saturday. I don't know what that's about, but so I kind of went back and watched a little bit of it. Yeah, I mean, Zuby Ejiofor is their best player, and Bryce Hopkins is going to be a really good addition for them. Ian Jackson, I was actually going back after our last show and looking at some of his numbers at Carolina last year. He was a little bit streaky, but he had some games where he really scored it well for them. I think he had a stretch kind of the middle of the season where it was like 18 plus points night after night. So, knowing the style they play and that, they're going to rely a lot on Ejiofor and Bryce Hopkins to score. I think Ian Jackson's a very capable third piece in that mix. And, again, just a very uncharacteristic performance from St. John's, especially from what we've seen under Pitino. And like we've said a few times, they played Bama's game. And I think when you've got a clash in styles like that, the team that can dictate the pace that the game goes at is the team that a lot of times ends up winning those games. And so Nate Oates and LeBaron Philon and Aiden Holloway, they made it their game. And Bama came out on top. So, gutsy performance to go into the Garden early in the season and knock off St. John's. Do you guys remember what the spread was on this game? I think St. John's was favored,
Favored
but
by
pretty light.
5-7. I think it was like 5.5.
Yeah. Latrell Wrightsel's back. He shot it pretty well from three, and as he gets more comfortable with that injury from last year, he's an absolute sniper. He might be an even better 3-point shooter than Philon is. So
And
another
no Jalil Bethea either.
right. Taylor Bolbowen had a nice game. Houston Millette is an interesting piece for them. He didn't play a ton last year, but he could be another guy that kind of fits the mold of what Nate Oates wants in a guard. I mean, he was pretty productive in a few years at Pepperdine before coming over to Bama last year. He had the injury bug last year. I think he only played in like 10 games or maybe even less than that. But they've got some really solid depth at the guard position, and that's exactly what Nate Oates wants to do. He wants to run and gun, get shots up as quickly as possible. So, again, with Bama, it's really, I think, more about consistency. And I think their fans would even tell you this as well. I try to be pretty objective when talking about them, try to be. But it's been kind of a, story of them just being a little bit volatile with the style that they play and susceptible to some losses that maybe they shouldn't have sometimes. But case in point with Saturday, they can also beat anybody that they line up with.
Yeah, I was also not able to closely pay attention to this game. I was down in Florida with some IU buddies watching the Penn State IU football game. Gus Johnson screaming in
Sweaty.
my face for 3 hours. Um, but I was checking in on it when I could, and we had a couple of us were tuned in as a kind of a secondary watch. And to me, you mentioned that yes, Bama can control the pace and they played their game. I thought it was impressive that St. John's was able to play that game with them. We did not
I
really see them play like that much last year. That being said, kind of looking at the box scores and breaking it down, they still only made 6 threes and they got 28 points from the free throw line. So the rest of those points are coming from the paint. So I don't know how they're going to be able to kind of keep that up if they're not playing a team that plays as fast as Bama does. But still, St. John's being able to go out there and compete with Bama, as you guys mentioned, playing Bama's game was impressive to me. Yeah, didn't really have any other big takeaways besides that. I am surprised with the spread being St. John's favored by 5 or 6 that they dropped in Ken Palm after that. You would think that that result would cause them to rise, but
Yeah, they went from 14 to 17, but then obviously jumped in the rankings. I don't know what they were ranked before, but they
may,
came in at 8.
maybe it was their second. I don't know what they did in their second game. Looks or their first game. Looks like I mean they beat North Dakota by 29. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm excited. I enjoy watching Bama play basketball. I enjoy watching St. John's play too. Those are honestly two of my favorite teams to watch. Just usually we'll see this year, but usually pretty contrasting styles. So that was a great game to kick off the first weekend with.
For sure. Last game that we're gonna hit on is Michigan State hosting Arkansas. They took down the Razorbacks 69-66, arguably one of the better coaching matchups historically, and maybe not Josh's favorite coaches. I'm a Cal hater myself, but Michigan State got the job done in what appeared to be just a Izzo masterclass. I mean, they had a good second half. They dominated the glass. They won the game while only shooting 7% from three. I mean, that's a Tom Izzo coach team.
crazy.
Yeah, one for 14 from three. Their leading scorer was Cohen Carr. Josh talked about him last week. I wasn't familiar with his game. The guy is very athletic. I mean, he
Jumping out of
might
the
be
gym.
might be one of the more athletic players in college basketball. He led the way for scoring for them with 15 points. I will say 7 of those came from the free throw line. I don't know exactly how good he is at creating his own shot. He plays fast in transition. But yeah, Izzo helped them get the win. Arkansas doesn't look like a basketball team right now. It looks like a lot of individuals. And when you recruit the way that Cal does, that tends to happen. That being said, Cal is also an expert at getting his team united and playing team basketball by March. Acuff and Malik, they played both of them, but they kind of staggered their minutes, and it looked like when one was on the floor and the other one wasn't, like Acuff was getting all the shots. Then Malik comes in, and Malik's getting all the shots. They shot 31 of their team's 52 times. So the offense rolls through them. I feel like this team's going to gel towards the end of the season, again, as Cal's teams usually do. But again, it showed, I mean, Izzo just won a gritty, tough game with no offensive production like he usually does.
Let me ask you guys this, because I was singing 90s country at Losers in Nashville when this game was going on. What was up with Carter Knox? I mean, he played 18 minutes, but I mean, he only put up one shot, obviously scored 0 points. I mean, I think he's someone we thought was going to be a, pretty big contributor for this team. Was he just not a big part of the game plan, or what did you guys think was up with him? Did you take notes of that? Because a 0 point performance from somebody like him is pretty uncharacteristic.
Yeah, I mean he did contribute in other ways. I think he got a couple boards, handed out a couple assists, but I think it just was the game plan for the game. And Arkansas is loaded with shooters. I think maybe one night it will be Knox's turn to kind of step up, but I don't really think that's a cause of concern yet. Maybe a bit eyebrow raising and think, what's going on with that? Something to monitor going forward. But I don't know if you had any other thoughts on that.
Not really. I mean, just to fall back, like their offense was a lot of ISO ball. Acuff and Malik Thomas are getting all the shots. The offense runs through them. It did not look, and it could be credit to Izzo's defense. It did not look like they were running a lot of offensive sets. It felt similarly to like watching Rutgers last year with Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, like super talented players who are going to get their shots and they're going to put up their stats, but are you going to win basketball games? And again, Cal usually gets those guys playing more team oriented, but towards the end of the year. But again, I think it's going to kind of run through those two.
Yeah.
DJ Wagner was, average like he usually is.
Yeah.
Um,
And Cal gets guards going. He gets guards into the league. It's kind of his bread and butter. So we'll see if he can get Knox going. But to me, I mean, I was impressed with Michigan State. I did not think they were going to win that game. Even it was in Sparty, but they won the game with Fears not making a shot from the field. And when they can do that, because he really was kind of their engine last year, that's impressive to me. And Payne, like you mentioned, kind of a classic is a win. Shot ugly, played ugly, but always playing harder than the other team, diving on the floor for loose balls, getting rebounds, playing tough. That's kind of a staple of Izzo, especially the past 3 or 4 years when maybe he's not as talented and hasn't fully adopted modern basketball, which that might be an overstatement, but they kind of play a different style than some of the top teams and a lot of what you see in the SEC. So kind of a classic or a classic Izzo win. And but yeah, no, that was impressive to me to see them beat a top 15 team like that.
Tip the cap to old Cal for playing a true road game.
Yeah, about time.
Yeah, one last thing I wanted to call out, and again, I didn't get to watch much of this game, but Cam Ward for Michigan State, 4-star freshman, came in, 18 points, 10 boards, was 8 for 13 from the field, hit a couple free throws. He was, I think, I was just looking, he was kind of ranked right there where we were talking about Sebastian Williams Adams, kind of high 40s, low 50s in the country. So definitely not a nobody coming in as a freshman, but a heck of a performance for him in 23 minutes too. I mean, to put up 18 and 10 and just 23 minutes on the floor is crazy efficient. So he could be somebody else that on a Michigan State team that is going to probably try and win a lot of games the way they won this one. And they've got some experience between Carr and Fears and Kohler. Adding a piece of the mix that can give you that kind of production and that type of efficiency is could be big for Izzo's team. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think we say this all the time with Cal teams, even going back to Kentucky, it always feels like it's a bunch of talented players rather than a team early in the year. I think he will get them to gel over time, and they'll begin to hit their stride. But they're just, Wagner's back now in year three. Acuff and Malik Thomas are extremely talented. Brazil and Carter Knox have some college experience at this point. So I think they'll get it going. Pringle too is a guy that's played a lot of college basketball. So, it'd be interesting to watch over the next few weeks how that team continues to kind of gel together. I was looking at their schedule. They played Duke on Thanksgiving. They turn around and played Louisville less than a week later. They play Texas Tech. They play Houston. So they've got some big time non-con games teed up. About starting here in a couple weeks. So we're gonna continue to learn more about this Arkansas team as well. Because right now, Peyton, to your point, it's a lot of talent that doesn't look like they're really playing like a team right now. And credit to Izzo for being able to take them down, even though it was at home.
Yeah, and real quick, I think we should talk about the end of that game with Jordan Scott going to the line, another freshman on Michigan State, and going over two from the line. And then I did Arkansas have two threes to win it at the end? I can't
Yep.
remember.
Yeah.
And I think they airballed the second maybe. So definitely, and the spread was 3.5 too. So Scott missing those free throws mattered to some, but that was kind of a crazy ending. And then I'm sure y'all saw with the Arkansas player hitting the towel on the Michigan State guy. I expect a suspension coming for that if it hadn't already. So yeah, kind of a crazy ending and why we all love college basketball. Freshmen guards going to the line and struggling in a big moment. But Izzo's never been afraid to play freshmen. Credit to him for that. So seems like he has a lot of trust in them this year again.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of our week to week game breakdown. This next quick little segment will just be kind of explaining what we hope our few listeners will enjoy. And I'm gonna
A few
give
but proud.
I'm gonna give a shameless plug to our Instagram account, Ball Up Top. We'll be posting. All three of us will post, a pick or two a couple of times a week on a full slate. We'll keep you updated with those picks ahead of game time as well as standings. We've kind of talked about as a group. Put a little friendly wager on it. First place will get a $50 free future placed by our last place picker by before March. So hopefully that'll be something to follow along. If you're following so far, you're definitely losing some money. After the first three picks that we all gave out, well, actually, after the first two, we were all 0 for 2, putting us as a podcast at 0 and 6. Hunter and I won with Duke minus 35 and Gonzaga minus 11. Unfortunately, Josh fell to 0-3, so that's our standings update. But yeah, hopefully something that we can post on the Instagram throughout the week to keep you guys engaged. And something that we all enjoy to do is, bet and make picks on college basketball.
Yeah, you guys know I was kicking myself after being all in on UNC in that game Friday night and going elsewhere with my pick. Made a little money off them though. So
There you go.
we move regardless. But yeah, to this point, it's been more of a fade us pick them than than anything else. But got to knock the rust off. It's first week of the season. We're gonna get it going, fellas. I have no doubts.
Yeah, definitely go follow the Instagram. Got the boys chopping up in there. I think Fanbait called them the ball heads, maybe.
Yeah,
Uh,
I love
they
it.
love to see them
Leatherheads.
leatherheads. Yeah, guys who just love ball. Um, but yeah, no, it's gonna be fun to track our picks and have a little friendly competition between the three of us.
All right. Well, if you made it this far, we'll try and keep this last segment here relatively quick. We got a couple of upcoming games we want to talk about, and then just maybe a quick little teams or coaches that we want to speak on. But as far as upcoming games go, try and go in chronological order here. Tomorrow night, we got a doubleheader starting first at 8 o'clock with Kentucky at Louisville. And then I've got a gripe about this. How are you playing another great ranked on ranked game? Also around 8:30, we've got Texas Tech and at Illinois. But we'll circle back. Any call outs or predictions for this Kentucky at Louisville game?
Did you say is that on one of the campuses or is that gonna be a neutral site somewhere in
It's
Kentucky?
a KFC Yum. Is that
Louisville.
That's
Louisville?
Louisville.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. True
Yeah,
home
no,
game.
that's awesome. I mean, that's a probably, in my opinion, top three, top four rivalry in college basketball. I think most would agree on that. So then two teams that we've talked about a lot, especially in our first episode, so that'll be fun to watch. And then Texas Tech, Illinois, another great to see that they're playing at Illinois on a campus. So that should be a fun Big Ten, Big 12 matchup.
Yeah, I've started my notes on that. The battle for who claims Terrence Shannon.
Ooh, I like that. I think Shannon's jersey is up in the rafters.
Is it still upside down?
I was about to say it might still be upside down. So maybe if Texas Tech wins, they can claim that and take it back with them to Lubbock.
I mean, those games are going to be great off the rip. God, we're all so high on both Kentucky and Louisville. You kind of want to go with the home team. Not sure what the spread is. I would take Louisville there probably. Texas Tech at Illinois, I'd go the other way, knowing how Serbian Illinois is and how physical and athletic Texas Tech is. I would probably lean Texas Tech.
Yeah, Torvik has Louisville favored by five, a little more than five, and then Illinois favored by almost 10. I mean, Torvik has Illinois as the third best team in
Holy.
the country. Well, I don't know. That might be a bit of an overstep, but that should be a good match. And that also has Texas Tech at 27, and I think that's a bit low for them.
If
They love
I'm
their
getting 10
coach.
points
Yeah.
on Texas Tech, I'm definitely taking Texas Tech.
Sounds like Peyton made his pick for Tuesday.
Yeah, I was just looking, and this is according to ESPN, but Vegas has Illinois as a 3.5 point favorite at home. So when you factor
Wow.
in home court, that's almost a neutral court pick 'em. They
Yeah.
have, let's see, where's
That's crazy that Vegas is that far off. It's pretty rare to see that big. I guess it's early in the year, but that's a pretty big discrepancy between
So for all your analytic junkies, I mean that screams take Illinois.
no, it screams Texas Tech. Or yeah, Illinois. Yeah,
Illinois,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I
yeah,
guess talking
Torvik's.
analytics, I think I saw on Twitter today that Evan Maya, Ken Pom, and Torvik all have different number one teams in the country right now. So it's still early, and I'm sure we'll see as those rankings kind of condense and match more closely with Vegas as the season goes on.
Alrighty. Also, I missed a triple header on 11-11 Creighton Gonzaga. I've got no call outs for that game. It'll be a 10 o'clock game. Probably won't make it through that one, but uh, Marquee, Gonzaga at home. It's a relatively long trip for Creighton. I think I would take Gonzaga in that spot.
Yeah, I think that probably sets up as a game where the absence of Kalkbrenner is going to be felt for the first time in several years for
Yeah.
Creighton. They've only played one game, and Owen Freeman. We talked about him a little bit in the preseason show. He had a really good game. Um, I don't actually know that. What's their? I don't know why his name's escaping me right now. This is bad podcasting. Um, their freshman that they brought in. I'm blanking on it right now. I'll find it here in a second, but I don't think he actually played for them in that first game. But yeah, I'm with you, P. I think Gonzaga, especially now that Tyler Grant Foster is playing, late night at the kennel, I would lean that way. I was going to tell you guys, Evan Mia also has Illinois as a 9-point favorite. So
What?
that's
Interesting.
two of our go-to analytics sources that are about 5.5, 6 points higher on the Illini than Vegas is. So that's pretty interesting. Evan Mia's got Louisville as a 5-point favorite, as does Torvik. According to ESPN, Vegas has got that one also at 3.5. So analytics like Louisville at home a little bit more than Vegas seems to. But you got 3.5 point lines on both of those games. And then Gonzaga is, where did I see them? They're a 10.5 point favorite against Creighton. And I think both sites have got that one. So Torvik actually only has Gonzaga as about a 6 point favorite. So kind of a flip there where Torvik is not quite as high on the home team in that Gonzaga Creighton game as he is uh, Illinois.
Yeah, sounds like a gonna be a great slate of Tuesday matchups, and it's awesome to see, like we mentioned, so many of those games being played on campus. I think all three of us are definitely in favor of that.
For sure. Okay, got a couple more here. Purdue at Bama, 7 o'clock
Blech.
on
Hitler versus
Thursday.
Stalin for this podcast.
Yeah, good.
Gross.
Hitler versus Stalin. I love that. Um, you know, I'm gonna say Purdue wins if Trey Kaufman plays. I mean, do we know if he's gonna play or not? If not, I would go with Bama.
No, I haven't seen anything on him. But yeah, I this game's in India, or is this game in like Birmingham?
It's in Tuscaloosa.
Oh,
It's at
oh,
Bama.
is it?
Yeah,
Oh,
They
Yeah.
nice.
played they
Very
played at
cool.
Mackey last year.
Right, that's right. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that place will be jumping, but I don't think that'll really phase Braden Smith. So we'll see what kind of game that turns into. I mean, Purdue has an elite offense, but they don't play as fast as Bama does. They're, I'd say, closer to St. John's than they are to Bama. You're looking at the spectrum, so that'll be a fun one to watch with two fan bases and teams that probably consider them obviously Purdue and then Bama with national contenders. So that'll be fun to watch.
That'll take us to Friday, late night hoops. We've got Zona at UCLA.
It's gonna
UCLA
be
better
fun, man.
like UCLA's got to start playing better. I love Donovan Dent, but I mean, they've looked shaky in their first two games. I don't know though. This feels like a spot where Mick Cronin team kind of down on the team. UCLA not playing too hot. Zona is about as they went from not being talked about to now everyone's like, oh, we didn't talk about them. They look good. Now everyone's talking about them. Maybe it feels like a UCLA spot here.
Yeah, I was trying to see if that game it's in LA, but is it at UCLA? I don't.
I don't know.
Let's see.
No, it's not. It's not at Pauley. Um, so yeah, I mean both analytics, both Ebony and Torvik have that right around a 1 point. Arizona is a 1 point favorite. Um, about as close to a pick 'em as you can get. And yeah, Peyton, to your point, and I haven't watched much about UCLA. I mean, I think we all know what Donovan Dent is and his ability to take over a game. But again, I think a lot of people now are stock up on Arizona. And I think Koa Pete, you know what you're going to get from him. The question is going to be more, can Jaden Bradley continue to show up in these games? And we didn't even talk about Braden Burries, who, another big time freshman for Arizona, didn't really do a whole lot in that Florida game. So as he gets going, that's a dangerous big three that Arizona's got there. But I love the old Pac-12 rivalry here with this one. I hate that we don't get to see this game, later into the season in conference play anymore because it was always one that I look forward to out on the West Coast. Um, but yeah, should be a fun one. I don't know what direction I would go with that one in terms of a pick. I was trying to find a Vegas line on it, but could not come across one. But yeah, both Evan Mia, Bart Torvik have that one right around Arizona -1.
Yeah, I'd probably lean Arizona just because Arizona's been tested so far and UCLA hasn't. I actually think UCLA might be playing right now or playing later tonight. Yeah, they're up 12 right now against the West Georgia Wolves. So that'll be
Ah,
three.
Pride of
Yeah,
Carrollton.
yeah. So that'll be three bye games before Arizona. But should be a good matchup.
Yeah, I've got a quote from Mick Cronin. I mean, I love and hate Mick Cronin at the same time. He's a hoop junkie. He said, quote, I played San Diego State so we could lose in front of 10,000. We didn't. Russell Turner is a great coach, a great mid-major program. Unfortunately, we won that game easily. When you have the wrong attitude in life, it shows up. So I blame myself. I knew this was coming and I couldn't stop it. So I failed miserably. I tried and shoot around. You were there. Points to the journalist who was asking him the questions. Arrogance, lack of humility, don't want to defend, don't want to rebound, don't want to play defense. There's so many mistakes. I'd like to fire myself for our defense. 54% shooting on us. We gave up 38 points in the paint. I blame myself. I knew this was coming. I couldn't stop it. Guy's a nut.
Yeah, to say the least.
Um, all right. Well, then on Saturday, we got two more games to talk about. 7 o'clock. This to me is my favorite game. UConn versus Baylor in Boston. I think this is remark like
BYU, right?
yeah, sorry, UConn versus BYU in Boston. It's a home game for UConn in my opinion. I mean, being so close. I think this is a classic. Like I love BYU, their electric factor with their team, but I think this is a classic. Hurley's gonna stick it to AJ game. AJ had UConn in his final three and chose BYU. Hurley takes everything and anything personal, so I could see them trying to run up the score. This is my game of the week. I would take UConn spread here.
Yeah, just to keep rolling with some of the analytic spreads here. So Evan Mia's got UConn -2 in that game. Um, Bart Torvik's actually got BYU favored by, I mean, he has it at half a point, but he has 76-75 BYU actually. So yeah, going to be fireworks in that game. UConn, that poor team they played the other night, they were up what 44-3
Yeah,
on someone. That is just unreal. Like halfway through the first half, um, but should be even 76-75 feels low, man. I think this game could potentially go into the 90s. There's a lot of offensive production for both teams, and I think one thing I was going to mention too, and credit, I was actually listening to Matt Norlander and Gary Parrish on my way up to Nashville the other night, and talking about Debanza and his potential to be the number one pick or player of the year. When you've got guys like Rob Wright and Richie Saunders, there may be nights where one of them go off and Debanza doesn't have that game breaking performance, just because of how much is around him. But yeah, BYU continues to be one of, if not the most intriguing team, just going forward, and they're going to be able to pour the ball in the basket. And what can they do on the defensive end? I think Torvik's got him. He's got their defensive efficiency rating 13th in the country right now. So if they can even give, top 15, top 20 level defense with what we know they can do offensively, they can be just about anybody. But I think UConn is probably, I would probably have them as my second best team in the country right now behind Houston. Um, and that Dan Hurley's going to have those guys up for that game. And again, being in Boston might be a little tough for BYU traveling for that one, but that's going to be must see TV Saturday night.
Yeah. Nothing too much more to add. I agree with you, Hunter. I think that could be a bit more of a high scoring game than Torvik's predicting. But yeah, no, love watching. Don't don't root for UConn, but I like watching them play. So that'll be a fun end of Saturday night after a day full of college football and basketball to watch.
Well said. All right, our last game of the week, and then we'll quickly hit on a couple of teams that we want to talk about. But on Sunday, 3 o'clock, Auburn versus Houston in Birmingham. Um, this could be a bloodbath. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm really curious to see how we handle a team like Houston. Auburn's looked very shaky so far. To me, the result of this game isn't necessarily super important. I kind of want to see how we handle adversity and bounce back in our games following this. I would take Houston here, but it is in Birmingham, so who knows? We will have the home court advantage.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, I said this earlier, I think our best shot is getting into a track meet if we can with them. And obviously that's very difficult to do against a team like Houston. Um, but I don't think if this game turns into a rock fight, I don't think we have one, the depth or the physicality to outlast them. I mean, and Uzan, Tugler, Emmanuel Sharp, like they haven't scored a ton against two kind of bye opponents, 75 against Lehigh and 65 against Towson, but gave up less than 60 in both of those games. So if we can come out and hit some shots, I think you've got a chance. Just because we know that when Todd Pettiford gets going, he can be a big time scorer. We know Keyshawn Hall is a big time scorer, but I just worry about from a physical standpoint how we match up with a team like Houston. Um, but be interesting to see. I think this is a great test for us. Um, but again, we've all got Houston as early season, Final Four picks and potentially even national champions. I think it's really just going to be a matter of can Auburn come out hot and maybe grab some momentum in Birmingham, get the crowd into it, and maybe try to make this a little bit more of a fast pace, up and down type game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson learned for Auburn, at least on in this game, will be a good test of how tough you are. Will you be able to match Auburn's physical
Agree.
or Houston's physicality? And like you said, not necessarily play their style, but you're just gonna have to play physical to beat Houston. Can we get a score prediction from each of you?
I'm gonna
No,
go
I'm good.
62 to 77,
Oh
Houston.
wow.
Yeah, I would maybe say like it's just so tough, man, because like we've scored a lot of points, but against two. I'll say it maybe ends up being a little bit higher scoring, where I'm gonna go like, you know, 70. No, that's too high. I'll say like 68 to 78, 79, Houston.
I would say my guess would be like 68, 60, something like that. I
Yeah.
think Houston's gonna be able to kind of exert their will on y'all. You're a brand new team, not entirely brand new, but a lot of new pieces coming in. So I think they have the experience, they have the toughness, and definitely have a proven coach at least. So, but it'll be a good test. It'll be a fun game to watch. Um, Great way to end the week.
I'll
I,
be
I,
interested to see what the spread comes out for that game. I don't think I've seen anything on it yet. I was just checking.
Torvik has 6.5, Houston, 73-66.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's like just the style that Houston plays. It's like they don't typically run teams out of the gym, and if they do, it's because they gave up 40 points
Right,
and
65 to
win
40.
65 to 40. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think they hold us that much, but I do see this being a scenario where they hold us enough and kind of comfortably come out with, maybe a 10, 12, potentially even 15-point win. Again, unless Todd Pettiford just goes absolutely nuts. I think I said it earlier, JoJo Tugler is going to be all over Keyshawn Hall, and he's arguably one of the best defensive players in the country. I'm sure several people had him as a pick for National Defense Player of the Year. So going to be a tough matchup there. Can Keyshawn Hall get to the free throw line and hit some free throws at an effective rate? But yeah, I think the lack of efficient 3-point shooting to this point and a lack of physicality inside is just not going to hold up for us over 40 minutes, unfortunately.
Agree. Well, that'll take us to our final segment here. Any teams that we haven't really hit on or talked about that are getting national attention, maybe some risers or some fallers. Try and keep this segment relatively short, I guess. So I know you guys are probably going to talk about a couple of teams. I did a deep dive, went down a couple of rabbit holes, and for our betting listeners, this is a team that caught my eye. It's IU Indianapolis.
Ooh,
So I don't know if you guys have heard about this team. They are 0-3, but they have a new coach by the name of Ben Howlett. He was similar to Nate Oates, high school math teacher, coached high school basketball before he got this, I think, fringe Division I job. But quote from coach before the season, we're going to play every game like we were down 8 with 2 minutes to go. Lots of pace, lots of threes. And their 3 games, they're 0-3. They played Ohio State and Butler too in this 3 game span. So they're playing some decent teams. They lost to Ohio State 108 or 102 to 118. 220 points in this game.
that's awesome.
Then they would go to Long Island and they lose 90 to 94. 184 points in that game. Then lastly, they just lost to Butler 80 to 112. So they're 0-3, but the over in those games is 3-0, and it's hitting by an average of 14.5 points. I don't know if Vegas is going to catch on for their games this week, but that is a team to watch if you want to bet an over.
Defense optional. That's awesome. I love hearing stories like
Interesting.
that. Something to monitor going forward.
Yeah,
Any, yeah,
something that jumped out at me. Vanderbilt is actually up to number 16 on Torvik. They have played, who did I was just looking at? They played Lipscomb and they played UCF. They scored 105 in each of those games. They beat Lipscomb 105 to 61, and they went on the road to UCF and beat them 105-93. Tyler Nickel is a sniper. He's shooting almost 60% from three. They've got Duke Miles, who came over from Oklahoma via JMU. I know, Peyton, you probably remember him.
yeah,
Auburn was on
yeah.
him going into last season. I think he was JMU and then maybe JUCO, but thought that caught my eye. Devin McLaughlin really hasn't even done a whole lot for them, and he was one of their better players last year. Um, and shout out to Chandler Bing, man. I don't know if you guys caught that. Vandy has a player. He doesn't play a whole lot, but his name is Chandler Bing. So
Mm,
that's pretty cool.
with Trent
RIP.
Sponster himself.
Um, yeah, it's a good call out on Vandy. I I'd say to me, team that impressed me the most, probably North Carolina, honestly. I mean, we were so down on them and really I don't think any of us really gave them. I mean, I know Hunter, you kind of were stumping for them a bit after the podcast against Kansas, but at least Payne and I weren't really giving much of a chance against Kansas, and they were wildly impressive. That second half was a very impressive performance. So Kansas or UNC big riser for me in terms of how I feel about them going forward. And Michigan State winning against Arkansas like that was very impressive. Of course, IU, I was big riser for me, but that's a lot of bias there. But yeah, kind of kind of some coaching is starting to win early, I think. You kind of see that. And maybe we'll see how Davis does at UNC. I think I for one, I know kind of like had written him off after the past two or three seasons that he's had. So that'll be interesting to watch to see how he adapts, and because another bad season like last year, I think he's probably gone.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know we're not huge advocates of the AP poll, but they were one of the biggest risers. Arizona went up 8 spots, Alabama went up 7 spots, and then you had UNC went up from number 25 to number 18, 7 spots. So talking about, risers within the first week, they were certainly one of them. And yeah, I think I had some questions about whether Hubert Davis was the guy simply because, the last few years have not been up to the standard of what that program demands and that fan base demands. They did have the run a few years ago as a 8 or 9 seed after a pretty underwhelming season. But they demand elite basketball at that school. And who knows? Maybe Caleb Wilson is that guy that can kind of carry them through this period without Seth Trimble. Um, I think depth is maybe still a little bit of a concern with them, but yeah, give them their flowers. Absolutely. I know it was at home, but beating a Kansas team that I think a lot of people held in high regard, especially with Darren Peterson potentially being, National Player of the Year candidate, number one pick candidate. Just a dominant second half from Carolina. So respect to them. Absolutely.
Well, I think that's it for episode 2. Thank you all for listening.
Yep. Appreciate everyone jumping on. Peyton, we'll talk about this offline, but Peyton and I may jump on Sunday afternoon and do a quick recap, live reaction of the Auburn Houston game.
Yeah.
Josh, maybe pop in. Be good to have a sort of an unbiased eye if you get a chance to watch that game. So we'll let you guys know on Instagram if we're planning on jumping on and doing that. And if not, I believe that we will see you guys back for episode 3, 2 weeks from yesterday. Just recapping some more of the games that have happened and doing a big preview for Feast Week, which I know is going to be a really good one this year.
Yes,
Perfect.
sir. That works.
All right, gentlemen, let's get out of here. Thanks everyone for listening. We are recording this on Monday night, November 10th. Hoping to have it out here shortly as these games get going this week. So make sure to follow along, subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, all that good stuff. We'll have some picks getting out this week on the Instagram as well. So thanks everyone for listening.
Peace.